I started writing something different for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it started spiraling into a much longer and complicated essay. Oh, the pitfalls of being a pretentious nerd. Hello there, freaks, geeks, and all those unique. This is Emcee Frodis. I've been struggling to come up with a way to talk about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Unlike Strange New Worlds, I didn't think a deep dive into each episode would work, seeing as it's one continuous story. I also don't love regular video reviews for me. So instead of a regular review or rushing out a deep dive into the entire series, I thought I'd take a look at the 10 things from Kenobi that made the series really something special. Leia as an integral part of the Skywalker legacy and the Organa family. Probably my favorite part of Kenobi, by the way, I'm just calling it Kenobi because that's what the series should have been called, was having young Leia Organa appear. I stayed away from spoilers, so it was an utter surprise for me, and a wonderful one at that. And part of that is giving Leia a place of prominence in her family legacies. Within the original trilogy, Leia is a character who stands all on her own. We don't even find out her last name within the movies themselves, finding out in the novels and merchandise before it's mentioned in the sequels. For as much as we all love Leia as a character, within the movies themselves, she's never given a chance to really stand on her own. She's the princess that needs rescuing, even if she does a lot of the rescuing herself in the end. She's also an object of lust for both Luke and Han. We don't get to see a lot of her emotions outside of her romance with Han. Even when Alderaan is destroyed, Leia is so stoic she tells Dodonna they'll have time for sorrow later. She's a badass, and we don't get to delve deep into what makes her tick. As the Skywalker saga has relied a lot on being a member of a family lineage as an identity, in particular a patriarchal family lineage, Leia was never a part of that. The Organas are murdered in the first movie, and we don't find out about her connection to Darth Vader until halfway through the third movie. We were robbed of getting a deeper look into Leia by the tragic death of Carrie Fisher before the filming of Rise of Skywalker, so we had to make do with what they could cobble together from existing footage, and that made things seem kind of disconnected. With Kenobi, we get to spend 6 episodes really getting to know Leia as Leia. Not only that, we get to see her as a reflection of her families. My best friend Sarah, upon watching the first 2 episodes, said it was amazing they were able to find an actress who was simultaneously young Padme, Anakin, and Bail. It's important that we should reflect on all 3, as well as Brea, from what we get to know of her. These are the building blocks of who she is. Leia is a smart young woman who doesn't suffer fools like Padme, but she's also passionate and headstrong like Anakin. These extreme personalities from tragic figures are tempered by the wisdom of Bail and the level-headedness of Brea. In her scenes with Bail and Brea, we can appreciate how close she is with both of them, and we mourn their loss in A New Hope all the more. Leia lost the person she ship-spotted with. We also see that despite being a princess, she was a pretty normal troublemaking girl who had the sci-fi equivalent of her cell phone confiscated when she was grounded. The series also makes Leia a part of Obi-Wan's mission, rather than being an afterthought like she's seemed to up until now. She was the only thing that was going to make Obi-Wan leave Tatooine. Seeing the bonding between them is beautiful. A New Hope is layered with so much more meaning now, as it becomes clearer it wasn't Bail who went to retrieve Obi-Wan, but it was Leia's idea, because Obi-Wan was her hero. For every person who wondered why Leia would name her son after Ben, just feel free to sob now. With all of this, I find the scene in A New Hope where Leia comforts Luke just absolutely bonkers, because not only did Leia lose her planet, but her family and her personal hero. Leia Organa has the emotional stoicism of a Vulcan to be able to put all of that aside to comfort some random farm boy. 9. Justice for Hayden Christensen. No matter what you think about any of the Star Wars movies, one of the most toxic elements has been the treatment of actors within the franchise. One of the actors who has suffered from such harsh treatment was Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I personally always liked Hayden Christensen, both in and out of Star Wars. First of all, hometown boy. And it's really hard for me to dislike a guy who shops at the store I work at. But outside of that, I never thought Hayden did a bad job. Do I think there were choices in the prequels? Absolutely, but I've never blamed the actors for them. Everyone in the prequels gave a bit of a stilted performance, because frankly George Lucas is not a good actor-director, and as Harrison Ford quite famously said, "George, you can type this shit, but you sure can't say it." Considering Anakin has the heaviest load to carry in terms of emotions and moving the plot forward, I think he did a fine job. There are also some incredible moments, such as when he silently storms the Jedi Temple once he's become Darth Vader. It was so nice to have Hayden get the chance to really stretch his legs in terms of acting as Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. By integrating flashbacks and visions of him, as well as the final duel, he finally gets his fair shake. Not only is this important in terms of the metatextual idea of Hayden being allowed to act, but one of my biggest problems with the prequels was always how Obi-Wan and Anakin were always going on separate missions from one another, so we didn't have a lot of time to build up their kinship, to really drive home how much Anakin's betrayal personally hurt Obi-Wan. One of my favorite scenes in the entire saga is the chase scene through Coruscant. This is the one scene where you really get an idea how close these two men are. The flashback scene of the pair training in the episode 5 shows us this closeness, but also gives us more of an insight into Darth Vader as a tactician, or lack thereof. Now, I mainly wanted to keep this list positive, but I do want to comment on one thing that I'm a bit conflicted on. The final fight between Vader and Obi-Wan is amazing. That highly emotional moment where Vader's mask is damaged and you can see Anakin's scarred face and his natural voice is mixing with the synthesized one, it's absolutely chilling. Or at least it was when I first saw it. Rebels' Twilight of the Apprentice is one of my favorite stories of all of Star Wars. Copying that wholesale for Obi-Wan cheapens both scenes. I really think they could have come up with something original. As much as I wanted to love it, it's always going to be tainted by being a retread. But that doesn't change that it was great to see Hayden come back to the franchise, and I'm really happy he's getting a loving reception from the fandom. 8. Doing the Easter eggs right. There is an art with Easter eggs. You want to slip in something from a previous part of the franchise, but you can't draw too much attention to it, nor should it be out of place. There should also be a solid story reason for it to be there. An example of an Easter egg, which I didn't think worked too well, was Han's dice. The Last Jedi brought these blink and you'll miss it reference from A New Hope in, but because it's so obscure a reference, its importance is lost. Then Solo tried to make them more important, so it just sort of seems like a circle jerk amongst the Disney-era films, with no real emotional weight. Another would be Dr. Evazan and Pondo Baba appearing on Jedha right before the Death Stars tested on it. Their appearance might have had a neon sign above them saying, hey, it's these guys, kind of like Kevin Smith did with Mark Hamill in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And you're also left wondering how they were able to get off Jedha quickly enough so that they could harass Luke at Chalmun's Cantina. But a good Easter egg is taking an iconic shot, like Luke sitting in his workroom, playing with a T-16 Skyhopper toy. He then puts it down to complain about the fact he'll never get off Tatooine. In Kenobi, we see how Luke got that toy. As soon as we got a glimpse of it, I knew what it was. It gives the original scene extra weight, because we know that he does have a destiny waiting for him with the man who gave him that toy. For readers of the ancillary media, we get smacked in the feels, because it had long been beta canon that Obi-Wan left Luke toys, and this was the first time we got to see that in any visual medium. Another good Easter egg is the brief appearance by Tamora Morrison as a clone trooper. His appearances in The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett have made him so indelibly tied to Boba Fett. It can also take you a moment to remember that he's also all of the clones. By seeing a clone abandoned on the street, forced to beg for spare credits, it shows us how disposable the clones were. Immediately after Order 66, there was no more use for them, and it's heartbreaking to see. This is a broken man now. It's a tragedy, being born for one purpose, and that purpose is secretly to betray the people you've been working alongside with, become friends with for years, and then being tossed out on the streets with nothing. These two Easter eggs are two sides of an emotional spectrum, but both equally important. 7. Quinlan Was Here. The only way this could have gotten better is if we'd actually seen him in person. But if they'd done that, they might feel obligated to kill him. And as far as I'm concerned, Quinlan is still alive well into the sequel era. One of the things the live-action shows has been getting so right is connecting them to the animated series. The Clone Wars and Rebels have some of the best stories in all of Star Wars. To make this franchise be a saga spanning the galaxy, things need to be connected together smoothly. While Ewan McGregor didn't act out the adventures of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan did. And it's nice to have references to things that happened in those animated adventures. Originally an extra from The Phantom Menace, Quinlan Vos was made into a Jedi in the expanded universe. When George Lucas liked the character, he was referenced, but ultimately cut from Revenge of the Sith. But he would make an appearance in the Clone Wars. A later, but unanimated second storyline with him and Asajj Ventress would be written into a novel, Dark Disciple. This novel is what secured Vos's fandom popularity. His ultimate fate in Order 66 would remain a mystery, and here we get something of an answer to it. It's exciting to find out characters survived Order 66. With how devastating it was to the Jedi, we want for some of the characters we love to have survived. It's why no one accepted Ahsoka's potential demise in Twilight of the Apprentice, and why people still don't accept her vocal cameo in Rise of Skywalker as proof she's dead by the time of the sequel trilogy. Let's face it, the Skywalkers are so messed up, we don't want them to be the only Jedi in the galaxy. Also, Quinlan is really hot, and if they make a season 2 and he should meet up with Obi-Wan, they should really smush faces together. I'm not the only one who thinks that. Come on, we need something new to happen in season 2. 6. Leia's wardrobe. I am a costume nerd. I like making costumes. My massive collection of coffee table books will tell you I like looking at costumes. But I like when costumes have a deep meaning to them. This is something in the same vein as the Skyhopper. This is an Easter egg done right. In fact, it's several of them. The costuming in Star Wars is iconic. In the original trilogy, it's simple but effective. Every character has a look you can point to as, yes, that's that specific character at that specific time. Leia's probably the best example of this, with her dresses being instantly recognizable even to casual viewers. In order to tie Vivian Lyra Blair's portrayal of Leia to Carrie Fisher's, most of her wardrobe is evocative of things worn in the original trilogy. It's not a direct copy. It's not like the costumer said, oh well, here's Leia's outfit from New Hope, just scaled down to kid size, but her hair is reminiscent of the braided updo Leia wore during the medal ceremony. The purple smock Leia wore on Alderaan gives us the feel of her outfit on Bespin. When she sheds the smock and is in white, it's like her outfit from A New Hope. While she's hiding with Obi-Wan, she wears a green cape that resembles her poncho from Endor. While it's not a Leia costume, when first escaping with Obi-Wan, Leia wears an orange hood that looks like Padme's handmaiden outfit from The Phantom Menace. What makes these costumes absolutely impeccable as references is that they're worn at times that are evocative of the situations when Leia wore them in the original trilogy. The purple outfit is for times when Leia feels trapped in a palatial place. The white outfit is for when Leia is taken hostage by her enemies. The orange hood is about hiding identity. Finally, the green poncho is about actively fighting against bad guys. Costuming is often only appreciated when it's flashy, but I think subtle, meaningful work is just as important, if not more so. 5. The path is not the rebellion. Okay, so I don't have any evidence of this. I'm just guessing based on how the series presents it. The Empire are bad guys. Like, really fucking bad guys. They hurt a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And I like seeing in Kenobi that not every group that opposes the Empire is the rebellion. This is the way fighting a galaxy-wide fascist regime would look in the real world. The rebellion in the path might be like the Predator handshake meme in their goal of subverting the Empire, but they actually have very different goals. It's quite nice, because they're formed from the two groups we saw taken down by the Emperor in the prequel trilogy. The rebellion is formed by the politicians that Palpatine manipulated to rise to power, as seen in the cut footage in Revenge of the Sith. Meanwhile, the path is the survivors of Order 66. One side actively fights against the Imperials. The other just wants to survive. I don't think either one of them is more right than the other in the way that they combat the Empire. As we see it, a lot of the people in the path are actually children. This is probably also the best time to talk about Tala. Indira Varma was such a great addition to the cast. It was great to see this character who had honestly believed in the Empire and then joined up. But once she realized what the Empire was doing, she decided to use her position to aid other people. And I appreciated having that change in her, rather than having her join the Imperials just to spy. It makes it seem more real, and that she should become disillusioned. 4. Imperial flag on the back of pickup. Before we get into this, let me state clearly, Star Wars has absolutely always been political, right from moment one. Anyone who thinks it's become woke now has been ignoring how liberal it has always been. It is people fighting space Nazis. Always has been. There has been a lot of unsettling things in Star Wars, but I don't think anything made my stomach sink the way seeing the Imperial flag on the back of Freck's truck did. So much of Star Wars is fantastically out of the reach of our everyday lives, but this is an image we in the real world can come up with a direct correlation for. We've all seen the trucks with the Confederate flags on the back of them. I've seen them in my hometown, and I live in fucking Canada. It's pretty damn widespread. I think what makes Freck so terrifying is that he's an example of what political theorists and Holocaust survivor Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil. He goes along with the Empire because, hey, they're in charge. Things are pretty good for him, so the Empire can't be that bad. If people would just let the Emperor do his thing, there wouldn't be any problems. The Jedi are the ones who are just agitating things. What makes it even scarier is knowing that there's more people like Freck than people like all of the main characters combined, both in and out of universe. The main characters are all larger-than-life mythic archetypes. But Freck is just a guy. He may look like a star-nosed mole, but you're more likely to meet someone who thinks like him than you are Obi-Wan Kenobi. 3. Owen and Beru. Do I really need to say more than how Aunt Beru is a fucking badass who hides weapons in the walls? Owen and Beru Lars are not characters who are given a lot of consideration in the Star Wars fandom. They're an origin story. They kind of just exist so that Luke has somewhere he can grow up safe and naive, until they're quickly dispatched so he can get on with his heroics. But Kenobi expands these characters, particularly Owen. While we always knew that Owen was hesitant about Obi-Wan, we get a deeper understanding as to why. What it comes down to is the fact that Luke is his kid, and Owen is terrified about what might happen to him. One of the tropes I hate in fiction is when adoption is downplayed as something lesser. Think this line from the first Avengers.
Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard, and he is my brother.
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
Saying that makes it sound like it's something of a lesser connection, but there's no reason that this should be the case. Owen and Beru have raised Luke since he was a newborn. He is absolutely their son, even if they acknowledge themselves as his aunt and uncle. Kenobi shows us how deeply their love for Luke goes, and it gives you the thought as to what actually happened when the stormtroopers came to their house that day. We had this idea of them as passive victims, but now I wonder if Owen and Beru fought back against the stormtroopers, thinking they were coming for Luke, their beloved son. I would also like to give a shout out to Joel Edgerton's portrayal of Owen. There was something in the inflection of his voice that really reminded me of Phil Brown. It was a little bit freaky how alike they were. 2. Reva. Kenobi could have coasted on established villains, considering they had access to one of the most iconic villains in modern fiction, one who has a deep emotional connection to the protagonist of this series. The show could have been fine with just using Darth Vader as an overarching antagonist, with the Grand Inquisitor working on the ground doing the everyday shit. But that would have been the easy thing to do. That would have been the shallow thing to do. Kenobi wasn't going to be happy doing just that, because having an out-and-out villain would not be interesting. It needs to be more. For those who have not watched Star Wars Rebels, first of all, please do. The Inquisitors are Force-sensitive people who have been seduced to the dark side and are hunting the Jedi for the Emperor. While we saw the fifth brother and the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels, Reva, the third sister, was a new character to us. What makes her an intriguing character is the layers to her. When we opened with Order 66 in Episode 1, I was pretty certain one of the younglings was Reva. But that didn't make it bad when it was revealed to be true, because it served a purpose within the narrative. Anakin's slaughter of the younglings is something much talked about in fandom, but has been fairly well ignored in universe. It was nice to put a spotlight on it after so long. Reva also stands as a character who is outside of this light and dark dichotomy, because it's not that she's bad, she was just groomed into her position. And it was never one she was truly interested in, but one she wanted to break free of by taking revenge upon those she thought had wronged her. Is that a good thing? Absolutely not. But it's understandable, especially in this larger-than-life world of a galaxy far, far away. Giving her a moment where she's able to identify with Luke speaks to George Lucas's line of poetry. By making the choice to let Luke go, Reva is able to let go of the past and move on with her life. One of the biggest things to happen in reaction to Kenobi were the racist attacks against Moses Ingram's. No one should suffer racism for any reason. And she was just so good in her role that I want the haters to seethe, and now that she's on her own path, for Reva to turn up in plenty of the new Star Wars media. Number 1, the hero journey of Obi-Wan Kenobi. The top of my list belongs to what is actually going to be the subject of my longer researched essay. It's just there is a lot of research that has to be done on it. Actually, more research than I've done for any of the papers in my university classes. Kenobi serves as the first time we get to see Obi-Wan as the hero. While he's always been heroic, he's always served as a secondary protagonist to other characters. But this is his story, and it's long-awaited and well-executed. This series served as a wonderful bridge. We find out that it wasn't as simple as waiting on Tatooine for the call to adventure. Obi-Wan was a broken man, and he had to find himself again before he could truly become Leia's only hope. Just to finish off, I think the series was really good. There are some things I might have changed. Some character moments felt a bit repetitive, so I think they could have tightened things up. Else they could have changed some of the things for other moments and maybe expanded the story. But Obi-Wan and Leia together was fantastic, and this is a series that will stand alongside the Clone Wars and Twin Suns as the saga of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So comment down below with your thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you like my videos, subscribe to my channel. I do other videos about Star Trek, Star Wars, and lots of other geeky things. If you want to support me, please visit my Patreon. You can also buy me a coffee, or you can go to my Redbubble and TeePublic and buy my geeky graphic designs. So until next time, live long, and may the Force be with you.